Hey y'all, welcome back. This is a special one-off pod where we are talking through the news of the dismantling of the U.S. Department of Ed, and we wanted to come and hit you with the high points and our recommendations for hiring right now, as well as for the 26-27 school year. I'm Josh from Josh's K-12 Jobs Blast.
I'm Christina from Agility Search. Josh, can you give us the 60-second summary of what's happening so we can stop refreshing our favorite news app and actually get some information?
Yeah, and I am actually, if you're watching on YouTube, gonna read this because I wanted to boil it down. So the first thing is that the U.S. Department of Ed has not been abolished and is not being abolished tomorrow. And I think it's also important that these are intergovernmental agency contracts where essentially the work is still going to be done. It is simply shifting from U.S. Department of Ed to other agencies. So that's number one. Number two, what is moving is 31 billion in annual grants, and that's your title dollars. And for the people that are in the day to day, like I used to be, Title One, Title Two, Title Three, Title Seven, your charter school planning money. If you have Native American students, your Indian education funds are all shifting to labor, interior, state, and HHS. The charter school program and the Title 5B facilities incentives now have moved to the Department of Labor. And the big part that you and I talked about, and this comes from my own personal angle as a special ed dad, right now, IDEA has not been touched. It is still at the US Department of Ed. And so if you are a parent and you are listening, I always use the back pocket of OCR and an OCR complaint to the Office of Civil Rights if my child's IEP isn't being met. The OCR is still intact, IDEA is still intact, again for now. And so we anticipate, based on all of the articles, that that will also be in place for this year and next year.
So translation means IEPs sounds like are staying the same in terms of how those function, that, CSP replication awards or Title I formulas, those are all safe and, proceeding as normal for now. But the clock is ticking. We knew from the beginning that the Trump folks and Linda McMahon was very transparent about that, or thinking about closing the Department of Education. So I want to know, Josh, from your perspective, and I'll think about mine too, but what does this mean for leaders today in this hiring season and thinking about the fall, next academic year?
Yeah, so I always think about those director of federal programs roles, and sometimes they report into a chief financial officer, sometimes they report into a COO, chief operating, or they report literally directly to a CEO or superintendent because they're so important. But their team probably needs to get bigger immediately. My rationale is that yes, you probably were working with different grant managers at US Department of Ed, but they all kind of spoke the same language, right? You were using the same systems. And so now if you're going to have to figure out labor, interior, state, and HHS, they're going to have four different systems potentially. Your SAM login probably is the same, but they probably use a bit different language. And so I think having the right people staffed up on those federal grants and the finance compliance is going to be really important starting right now.
And if I think about boards, CEOs, executive directors, superintendents, the important thing there, exactly to what you're saying, is that the political landscape is getting more complex and they're going to be new players. So federally, there are going to be new agencies and new contacts that you'll have. To your point, maybe you had the person you usually went to for the thing or the office you went to for the thing. It's going to be different. But it's clear that the other larger agenda is to push policymaking for education down to the state and local levels. We're already seeing that. Here in California, it's already been pushed largely to the local level where there's no longer the same opportunities to go straight to the state if a charter school has a concern or an issue. They're really being pushed to the county and city. So we've already seen that in some jurisdictions, but that's going to continue to happen. So my counsel for boards and leaders, which again, we talked about this recently, this is happening increasingly, but really build political relationships with local policymakers, understand the makeup of your current board, the superintendents for your county, the state leaders that are affecting education, so you can be savvy and be prepared. as things increasingly get pushed to the state level. And then read up a little bit on the federal agencies if you may not know much about them, to your point. Like, let's learn a little bit about HHS or Department of Labor or DOJ if they're interacting with you in ways they never have before.
Yeah, and I'll build out, and I'm making a connection to the data. I was talking to somebody this morning who was thinking about posting a chief academic officer role, but they made the point, and I had seen this, but that there are many more chief school officers or chief of school roles that are popping up. And they were like, why do you think that is? And I really do think, to your point, CEOs and superintendents are having to make a decision. Can I run the day to day of my district or network, or do I need to be outward facing and the image holder who is building relationships to knock down barriers? And I think that's right. And I think that echoes what you're talking about. So, as people are building their org charts and budget season for next year, really thinking through what is the division of labor to make sure that my interior team is ready to run the day to day. And I have a scaled up exterior team that can build, maintain those relationships. So, to your point, when you don't know what a, what a particular report, local, state, or federal means, you can call someone and you can ask for grace or get that definition.
And I think you're right. And when we think about C-level roles, like the level of experience required in a C-level role, of course, it's wonderful to have a C-level person overseeing curriculum and instruction in creative and innovative ways of delivering for kids and looking at the data. But I think you're right that a lot of CEOs and superintendents, when push comes to shove, if they only get one of those C-level roles on the instructional academic side, is thinking, who's the person that's going to manage and coach my principals? Particularly in this day where we have fewer people entering principalship because fewer people are teachers. And people that are entering principalship, it's a more complicated job than it was before. They're dealing with enrollment declines. They may have more strained resources. They may have families that are way more involved or expect to be more involved in schools than they were before, or teachers who are a different generation that expect something different from work. So I think that the role, as these roles get more complicated, it's upstream. And you're right that superintendents and CEOs are saying, if I really have to choose, I need someone that can really support and coach that principal. And I can figure out curriculum instruction perhaps with a little bit different team.
That's it. Well, people are getting ready for all of the holidays. And what we know is that the holiday of school budget season begins in earnest in January. And so I think this is helpful for people to hear. Breathe, be thoughtful, be mindful, and staff up appropriately to make sure that you have the folks that can build the relationships, understand the definitions, and speak the different governmental dialects at these various places where the work is going to be flowing.
And speaking of next year and the season, I just want to put in a plug. I was talking with an org this week and they were like, well, we know we've got to get our talent acquisition person in place by March because that's when we do recruiting. And I say, no, you do recruiting now. Please, it's a year-round sport, but even so, for educators, even for teachers, you got to get your plan in place now. So if you need help, talk to me or Josh. We're happy to just off the record, give advice or ideas, but get your plan in place now. Be ready after the new year to hit the ground fully running with whatever your recruitment plan is, because people are looking earlier and earlier, and great people are getting snapped up even sooner than they used to before. So that's my recruitment plug.
Well, thank you for making the time, and thank you everybody for listening. Remember, take a deep breath, make a plan, and keep focused on your mission. I'm
And enjoy the
Josh.
holidays, whatever holidays you host or participate in. I'm Christina. Nice to see all of you.
Awesome. Thanks, y'all.